Hello, Bleacher Report listeners. My name is James Hill. I run the YouTube channel MrBucsNation, as you guys can see down here in the lower third on the bottom left. And I also do live streams here on the Bleacher Report app. So thank you guys so much for joining me for yet another live stream here on the app. Today, we have a special one. As you guys can see up in the top right-hand side of your screen, I'm talking about the NFL draft. It is quickly approaching. We've mainly gotten through the bigger parts of free agency. There still may be some moves here and there, but for the most part, the big moments of free agency are over, which means now we can transition to the NFL draft. Specifically today, I'm going to be unveiling my mock draft 1.0 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It is a full 7-round mock draft. I'm going all the way from round 1 to all the way to the end of round number 7. I'm going to be explaining each pick that I make throughout the process. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 26th overall pick. I have them selecting this player, Chop Robinson, edge defender out of Penn State. Look, folks, this is a special player, in my opinion. I think that Chop Robinson is a guy that has legit potential at the NFL level. He is 6'3", 254 pounds. He is an absolute beast of an athlete. A 4.48 40-yard dash, by the way. Oh my goodness. A 1.54 10-yard split, a 34.5-inch vertical jump, a 10-foot 8-inch broad jump, and a 4.25 20-yard shuttle. One important thing that I see here that we didn't get to see Chop Robinson do at the combine is the bench press. Chop Robinson did not, do the bench press at the combine. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is at the end of the day. I think that Chop Robinson will possibly do that at his pro day. We will have to wait and see what's going to happen with that as well. But regardless, Chop Robinson is still a freak athlete. A 4.48 40-yard dash for a guy who is, again, 254 pounds and 6'3" is pretty wild, in my opinion. Is pretty darn wild. So what do I like about Chop Robinson? Well, let's go ahead and go to the stats so we can take a deeper look at what I am talking about. So if we go down here, take a look at the overall statistics. He spent his first year at Maryland in 2021. Nothing particularly special, 2.5 tackles for loss and 2 in there as well. But 2022 and 2023 are where things really elevated the game, so to speak. In 2022, 10 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, a forced fumble in there as well, and a fumble recovered. Then in 2023, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovered. I know that typically a lot of fans latch on to, big flashy stats like 100 sacks and 500 tackles for loss. Obviously, I'm exaggerating the numbers there. But point being is this: there is something to be said that some guys just don't produce a lot of stats at the collegiate level, but then go into the NFL and are able to do some really good things. And I think Chop Robinson is one of those guys who can fall into that category, I believe. Can be a guy who, did he put up the craziest numbers at the collegiate level? No, but he can be a guy who can really go to the NFL level and can contribute right away. I say that to say this: the Bucs have a needed edge rusher. You lost Shaq Barrett in the offseason. I say lost. They released him at the end of the day in the offseason. And you didn't add anybody so far up to this point. Now, the offseason is still going on. You could still add a veteran here or there. But right now, going forward, you have second-year edge defender Yaya Diaby as your expected top pass rusher going forward. You have fourth-year edge rusher Joe Tryon-Shuinga, who's been admittedly up and down so far up to this point with his overall production, with his overall numbers in terms of what he's been able to do for the Bucs. And then you have a veteran in Anthony Nelson, a former 4th-round draft pick of Jason Light from a few seasons ago as well. Those are your top 3 guys. After that, you've got some rotational guys in that mix as well, but you need to add more. And if the Bucs aren't going to invest heavy in terms of adding a veteran, very well could invest heavy by taking somebody in the first round of this upcoming NFL draft. This is one of those premium positions that you just continuously invest in. And I do believe Chop Robinson would be a good investment for the Bucs, because if you're able to harness this athleticism and this overall ability that Robinson has displayed throughout his collegiate career and in the pre-draft process, you could have a real legit pass rusher in your stable with those guys that I mentioned, which I think would be a solid young group. I think that even if you don't want to keep a guy like JTS, you still have Yaya Diaby there. You still have Chop Robinson there as your both present and future as well. If you do want to keep JTS, maybe he'd be willing to come back on a cheaper deal after this upcoming season. Then you would still have a good core stable of pass rushers that are all still in their early to mid 20s. It's a pretty good group if it does work out. With the second round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going to be going with a name that has been connected to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers recently. It is inside linebacker from Texas A&M, Adrian Cooper, 6'2", 230 pounds. This is actually a guy who had a top 30 visit with the Buccaneers recently. Now, I'd actually talked about that over on my YouTube channel, MrBucsNation, but I'm going to talk about it again here. He has had a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is notable. That is a big deal, in my opinion. And I think that he can be a solid linebacker in this league. He graded very, very well at the combine, by the way. I mean, very, very well. Whenever you take a look at the overall combine numbers, it supports this. A 4.51 yard dash, a 1.54 10-yard split, 34.5-inch vertical jump, 9-foot 10-inch broad jump. This dude is another huge athlete. And the Buccaneers, folks, they lost Devin White in the offseason. I say lost. They didn't re-sign him to a contract. He was let go. He joined the Philadelphia Eagles. And now Buccaneers are looking at what other options are available. I think a guy like Adrian Cooper can be a pretty good option going forward. Now, we're going to take a look at the stats real quick, but I do want to take a look at some of the chat here. Firstly, Cody says, too early for Chop, in my opinion. He's a mid-second rounder, and that's where you talk about the risk, right? Chop Robinson can be a boom or bust type of prospect. So I thank you for giving your opinion and saying, hey, might be too early. Possibly going to be something that they consider as well. We also have Sweet in here as well saying Chop going to be a bust, in my opinion. It's definitely a diversive type of pick, but this is a guy that has been, linked to the Buccaneers in some mock drafts, has definitely been linked to a lot of teams in the later half of the first round. So, it is taking a bit of a flyer, but the Bucs have done that in the past as well. So we'll see. But I do want to go back to a lot of people actually consider, hey, lose is a strong term for Mr. Devin White. But point being is that he's not on the team anymore. And you do lose something with Devin White. Just to talk about that real quick. And, Devin White was the most blitzed player in the NFL from 2019 to 2023. That's notable. The second most person who was blitzed in the entirety of the NFL was Shaq Barrett. So in this mock draft, I'm addressing that second problem with Shaq Barrett with Chop Robinson. Then in the first problem that I just mentioned here with Devin White, we're going to take a look real quick at the overall stats of Adrian Cooper here. So one thing that's super interesting to me, by the way, is the overall stats that Cooper had this previous year. First off, one-time All-American. I love that. Wore the number 45 at Texas A&M. Wouldn't have to change his number. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting, right? It's kind of interesting. Doesn't have to change his number. So, but you go down here, really the most notable season I want to look at is 2023. If you guys take a look right next to me, 17 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. It's pretty darn impressive. And it goes to say this could Adrian Cooper, be that replacement for Devin White as this linebacker that is sent on every single blitz under the sun? Might be one of the most blitzed inside linebackers in the entirety of the NFL this upcoming season. Is that something that Cooper could do? My suggestion would be yes. I think he's got the size. Again, I go back to it, 6'2", 230 pounds. He's got the athleticism, ran a 4.51 40-yard dash. He is a guy that could be that replacement for Devin White if that is what you are looking for in the earlier rounds of the draft. Because yes, you have KJ Britt there. Yes, you do have Servassier Dennis there as well, who could also replace some of that pass rush that is missing from the loss of Devin White. But if you do want to invest early, which it seems like the Buccaneers may be interested in doing that, you could go ahead and go with an Adrian Cooper there, which, you know, again, the Bucs do have interest. He was brought in for a top 30 visit with the Bucs. I have him going here at round number 2, pick 58 for the Buccaneers mock draft. Now, going to round 3, things get pretty interesting as the Bucs have 2 third-round draft picks. They have their original one at pick 89. Then they got pick number 92 from the Carlton Davis trade from the Detroit Lions. Great trade for the Bucs, in my opinion. You move on from some salary. You gain back some, you know, strong draft capital, in my opinion, in a third-round draft pick. That is no, you know, thing to sneeze at. And the Bucs have a lot of wiggle room, have a lot of resources to work with pretty early on. 4 picks in the top 100 is pretty impressive. But, you know, somebody does talk about it here. Is the first round too high to draft a center? I don't think so at all. But in this mock draft, I actually have them waiting until the 3rd round here to address interior offensive line, and they're going to do it with this pick right here. With their first 3rd round selection, I have them selecting Mason McCormick, interior offensive lineman out of South Dakota State. Now, he is playing guard here in this area. I think he could play guard or center. We just have to wait and see how it shakes up at the end of the day, but this is a classic Jason Light draft pick. A small guy from South Dakota State, which, by the way, South Dakota State has been really good for the past couple of years. Like, do not sleep on South Dakota State. A 5.08 40-yard dash, 1.71 10-yard split, a 35.5-inch vertical jump. After that, you have a 9'9" broad jump, a 7.593 cone drill, and a 4.45 20-yard shuttle. This is, again, a classic Jason Light draft pick. He's a guy that has versatility. I think he can play center, can play guard. Is a guy where could he be your starting center this upcoming season? I would say the possibility is yes. Would you possibly want to put him at guard? I think the possibility is yes as well. In this scenario, I do have him playing guard because I don't necessarily believe the Buccaneers are done addressing the interior offensive line in free agency. I think that they still have a very strong chance to sign Brian Allen, a former LA Rams center, spend time with Liam Cohen as well during their time together with the LA Rams. And I think that that's going to be who is possibly going to be the starting center moving forward, or they could stick with Hainsey. But in this scenario, you're getting a guy in McCormick where I think you could play him at guard, but you could have him compete at starting center as well because of that versatility. Somebody did say, what about Frazier from WVU? I love Frazier from WVU. Just didn't go with him in this mock draft. I thought about taking him in round number 1, but I decided that edge was still also a pretty important need. And with that extra 3rd round draft pick, I felt good about where I still had the Bucs addressing an offensive lineman, because you take a look at where the Bucs have addressed offensive line in the past few drafts. It's been a lot of heavy investment. Tristan Wirfs, former 1st round draft pick. Robert Hainsey, former 3rd round draft pick. Luke Gedeke, former 3rd or 2nd round draft pick. You have Cody Mock, former 2nd round draft pick. It has not been for a lack of effort. The Bucs have invested heavily along the offensive line. And even in this scenario, they still use a 3rd round draft pick along an offensive lineman. Now, offensive lineman, I mean, you can have an impact guy come out of a lot of different places in the offensive line in the NFL draft. I've seen 5th rounders, 6th rounders, 7th rounders turn into absolute all-stars. And I think this is still a good investment and a high tier investment for an offensive lineman. Cody points out Ali Marpet too, former second round draft pick as well. Donovan Smith, former second round draft pick as well. Like the Bucs invested a lot in the offensive line with the NFL draft in the past. So it is very interesting. And I think that trend will continue here in my mock draft. Edwin says, who's replacing Shaq Barrett? Possibly Chop Robinson. That's who I have in the mock draft so far. So we will have to wait and see. But I have Mason McCormick here. I think he's got good versatility at guard. I think he's got good versatility at center. We'll just have to wait and see. Moving on to the second third-round draft pick of the Bucs, pick number 92, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting a local player with this selection. So with the 92nd overall pick, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Renardo Green, cornerback out of Florida State. Now, he's from Orlando, Florida, went to school at Florida State, 6 feet tall, 186 pounds. Now, right now, he ran a 4.49 40-yard dash, a 1.53 10-yard split, 37.5-inch vertical jump, a 10-foot, 10-inch broad jump. We didn't see anything else from him at the NFL Combine, but this dude's a freak athlete. And as I said, the Bucs did just trade away Carlton Davis. You do have a need at outside cornerback. You do have Zion McCollum there, and you did bring in Tavier Thomas to compete at nickel. But I think a guy like Renardo Green is a guy that could compete right away at that outside cornerback spot. And of course, it helps that he's a Florida guy. He's Florida guy, true and true. I mean that wholeheartedly. He is a guy that is a Florida man, true and true, in a good way. And I think that Green can compete right away with Zion McCollum at that outside cornerback spot. And again, the Bucs have invested in the past in the secondary in these second to third rounds. Carlton Davis, former second round draft pick. Jamel Dean, third round draft pick. Mike Edwards, third round draft pick. Antoine Winfield Jr., second round draft pick. Zion McCollum was a fifth round draft pick, but the Bucs also invest heavily in cornerback. I think that continues here. I think that, little bit sly by Jason Light where he drafts Carlton Davis's replacement with the pick that, he got in the trade for Carlton Davis, but that's just the way I see it. And B says perfect replacement for Carlton Davis. I think that this is a guy that can compete right away. He's got really good athleticism. Think he'd be a very good fit in a Todd Bowles style of defense. And overall, I just like the pick here, and then I'd add this late into the mock draft after the trade was done. But this is one of my more favorite picks because of what I saw from Green at Florida State, because of the athleticism and because of the overall fit in this Bulls style of defense. Moving on to round number 4. Now I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers addressing this. I'm going to go ahead and pin this comment. Wide receiver depth is immaculate. We could grab a really good one in the third or fourth. I'm glad you brought that up, Cody, because with the 4th round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have them selecting Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver out of Michigan. 6'3", 212 pounds, a 4.44 40-yard dash, 1.55 10-yard, 37.5-inch vertical jump, 10-foot, 7-inch broad jump. I really like Cornelius Johnson. He's a guy who's played at a big level at Michigan. He's played in the national championship, won a national championship, played in the college football playoffs, is a guy that, coming out of Michigan is a part of an organization that really prepares you for the NFL level in great size as well. I think Cornelius Johnson, if he's able to grow and develop, especially in this offense that has developed really good wide receivers in the past, can be a guy who can be a future outside wide receiver for you. Maybe a 2. I'm not going to go as far as to say a 1 because, I'm not going to bank on a 4th rounder being your eventual number 1 wide receiver. But I think the future of the wide receiver position is at least bright in the sense of having Palmer and Johnson there. You have some really good options for starting wide receivers down the line. I want to take a look real quick at Cornelius Johnson's stats because I feel like this guy is also, been able to produce while at Michigan as well. So if we quickly jump over and take a quick look at his stats overall, you take a look, 604 receiving yards, only one receiving touchdown with Michigan in 2023, but they did run the football a lot in 2022, 409 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. He spent 5 years at Michigan, which I feel like is notable. Never had a year without a touchdown, which I think is a pretty cool thing in there as well. Again, spending this much time at Michigan, I think just does nothing but prepares him for the NFL level and is really able to just boost his immediate impact that he can have at the NFL level as well. Moving on to round number 6, pick number 220. I had some fun with this one. I did have some fun with this one. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Frank Gore Jr. out of Southern Mississippi. 5'8", 201 pounds. Now, he is graded to be bottom of the roster practice. Hey, Frank Gore Jr., Antoine Winfield Jr., not Jr. Asante Samuel Jr. I like these junior players. By the way, Cornelius ran a 4.44 40-yard dash, by the way. But going back to Frank Gore Jr., we've talked about the idea of the Buccaneers drafting a running back this upcoming draft season. They brought back Chase Edmonds, but Todd Bowles was very clear they want to get some running back help to alleviate the gigantic workload that Rachaad White had last year. Very large workload that White was working with. I like Chase Edmonds a lot. I think he's a great number 2. I think Frank Gore Jr. can be a good power back in this scenario. A guy that you give some goal line carries and just have him run right up the gut at the 1 or 2 yard line and just dive in for some touchdowns, or just use his smaller body just to get under the pile. Again, 5'8", 201. It's a bowling ball of a running back, in my opinion. If he adds a little bit more weight into that process as well, he'd be looking a lot like his dad. I'm just saying. So I had some fun with this one. It's round 6. It's 220. I like the idea of Frank Gore Jr. in this running back room. If you were to tell me after the draft that your running back room was Chase Edmonds, it was Rachaad White and Frank Gore Jr., not starting in that order. It'd be Rachaad White, Chase Edmonds, and Frank Gore Jr. in that order. I would like that overall running back room a lot, in my opinion. I would have a lot of fun with that. But I do have the Bucs going running back in the later rounds. And then with the last pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with pick number 244, had some more fun with this as well. And this player actually has a very strong connection to the current Buccaneers OC. It's Kentucky quarterback Devin Leary, 6'1", 215 pounds. I do have the Bucs drafting a quarterback right now. You've got Baker Mayfield, you've got Kyle Trask, and you've got John Wolford. Now, Baker Mayfield and John Wolford, they of course have connections to Liam Cohen. They all spend time together with the LA Rams. However, Devin Leary has also spent time with Liam Cohen, could be a candidate for the practice squad, in my opinion, and why not, right? Kyle Trask, I believe, is going to be on the last year of his deal. In fact, I know he is. And John Wolford's on a 1-year deal as well. Devin Leary could be a backup for you for the next couple of years if you don't keep Trask, which I don't expect the Bucs to keep Trask after this upcoming season, and if Wolford decides to move on as well. Or even if he doesn't, and if just Trask moves on, you have Leary there. You have Wolford battling it out for the backup quarterback spot. If you can't afford to keep a guy like Leary on your roster going forward, or even on the practice squad, or maybe you even just move John Wolford to the practice squad and have Leary as your quarterback 3. I don't know, but I do like Leary as a young quarterback prospect. Decent-ish enough size, but especially for a West Coast style Liam Cohen offense, he's a good fit for that as well. And I just had some fun with these last couple of picks with Frank Gore Jr. and with Devin Leary coming in at that quarterback position as well. But folks, that is it for my 2024 7-round mock draft 1.0. I'm going to be doing one more of these right before the NFL draft, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts and opinions. I've selected a lot of different players. So round number 1, pick 26, I had Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Round 2, pick 58, we have Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker out of Texas A&M. Round 3, pick 89, Mason McCormick, interior offensive lineman out of South Dakota State. Round 3, pick 92, Renardo Green, cornerback out of Florida State. Round 4, pick 127, Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver out of Michigan. Round 6, pick 220, Frank Gore Jr., running back out of Southern Miss. Round 7, pick 244, Devin Leary, quarterback out of Kentucky. I'm pretty satisfied with this mock draft. I'm sure my thoughts and opinions are going to change as we get closer to the upcoming draft, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions as well. Thank you guys so much for voting in the poll, by the way. Seems a little bit of a split here in terms of what you guys want to see in terms of edge or cornerback in round number 1. Maybe that's something we can address in a future mock draft as well. But folks, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this live stream here on the Bleacher Report app. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Again, my name is James Hill. I run the YouTube channel MrBucsNation, where you can find all things about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can also find all things about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here on the Bleacher Report app as well. Not just the Bucs, but the entirety of the NFL. Not just the entirety of the NFL, but the MLB, NHL, NBA, and all other sports as well. So make sure you stay tuned on the Bleacher Report app for more live streams like this, not just from myself, but from other creators as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching this live stream. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.